Hey ladies and gentlemen, Steven here from Redolessence. Welcome back to another video. So of course, when we're talking about fragrances that are appropriate for the colder months of the year, the fall and winter staples, we're talking about fragrances that are dark, woodsy, spicy, earthy. Well, this fragrance has all three of those things. Is this a flanker to the ever popular Supremacy by Afnan? This is called Supremacy in Oud. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Now, before I begin today's episode and I tell you all about Supremacy in Oud by Afnan, and I give you my thoughts on the smell, some identifiable characteristics that are embodied within the note breakdown that actually translate into the aroma, and I tell you about how it evolved on my skin and any comparisons to popular fragrances, I do want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance-related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon so you could be notified whenever I do upload future videos to the channel, and of course, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it or if you took something of value from today's episode. It would really mean a lot to me. So, of course, Afnan has a fragrance called Supremacy, which I also own, and that is their take on Redolessence, right? The brand is really not trying to hide it, and I think they did a wonderful job. I do think that their version is perhaps a little bit more on the lemony and the fresher side of things, which I actually kind of enjoy, right? Sometimes when I want a Redolessence type fragrance, I'm looking for more of a twist rather than a clone. Now here we have one called Supremacy in Oud. So I was wondering to myself, is this going to be a darker Redolessence? And as I spent more and more time with it, I realized actually quite immediately and instantaneously that no, this is a completely different DNA and one that I was able to place my finger on quite quickly. As a matter of fact, the fragrance that this one is a clone or twist of is actually much closer than you think. But in any case, I'm excited to give you my thoughts on the smell and also the accuracy of this inspiration, if you will. Let's go ahead and take a quick look at the presentation. Now, the opening of this fragrance is quite wonderful. I love the way that this fragrance opens up. It's exactly what I'm looking for the colder weather. So it has the spices, it has oud, it has some woods, it has some earthy notes, but it also has a subtle touch of sweetness about it that I really enjoy. So it opens up with this strong and bold and charismatic note of saffron. Now, saffron is the most expensive spice in the world, and the thing that I love about saffron is it always adds this unique and exotic quality to a fragrance. Different spices have different effects on fragrances. Nutmeg can actually make a fragrance smell kind of oceanic. You have notes like cinnamon. Of course, it's a little bit on the sweet side of things, and for some people it can be a little bit too cloying, but the thing about saffron is it adds this leathery texture, but it also smells quite exotic, and I really do like the presence that it has in this fragrance. Now, there is a touch of oud in the dry down, and it's not one of those animalistic ouds, so you don't have to worry about that. It doesn't have this sort of barnyard musky tendency that oud tends to have in some other fragrances. The balance of it is actually quite tastefully done, and then you do kind of have like this earthy texture. I would say it's a nice balance of cedarwood and patchouli that I'm personally getting. I don't know if either one of those two ingredients are in the note breakdown, but a lot of the way that I described this fragrance is relied on my experience with another fragrance, of which I think this is kind of an inspiration, and that fragrance is by Inicio Parfum Privé, and it's called Oud for Greatness. Now, obviously this fragrance came out several years ago. It is Inicio Parfum's bestseller, and there's something so amazing about that DNA, and there's a reason why it does so well. So initially, when Oud for Greatness came out, people were comparing it to Baccarat Rouge 540 by Maison Francis Kurkdjian. When you do an actual side-by-side, you realize that maybe they have a bit of the sweetness in common, but aside from that, they're completely different fragrances. If you can't tell the difference between Oud for Greatness and Baccarat Rouge, you would have to get your nose checked, right? They're quite different fragrances. Now, the case with this fragrance, Supremacy and Oud for Greatness, it's nearly impossible, unless you're an expert, it's nearly impossible to tell the difference. Now, I personally did a side-by-side just to see if, maybe my nose was playing tricks on me, because I made that connection before I looked online. I knew it was something dark, a little bit sweet, a little bit spicy, and then it clicked. But I said, you know what? Let me spray it on another test strip. Let me do a side-by-side. So the side-by-side determines that Oud for Greatness is probably a little bit more on the green or earthy side of things. This one is perhaps a little bit more on the dark, spicy, and woodsy side of things. But at the end of the day, the differences are quite minute. So I would say there's only like a 5 to 10% difference. So there's like a 90 to 95% similarity. Okay, so this fragrance is basically Oud for Greatness by Initio Parfum Privé. Now, a lot of people have also compared this one to Hautaine by Parfum de Marly, which is also kind of in that Oud for Greatness family. Hautaine is actually very much on the green side of things as compared to any of the other two fragrances that I mentioned. But what I really like about this fragrance is, of course, the affordability. So if you're looking for something that is and I don't think it's a clone per se, although the note breakdown is quite similar to some other fragrances that I mentioned, if you're a fan of that Oud for Greatness, Parfum de Marly, Hautaine type of a DNA, I think you'll really enjoy Supremacy and Oud. Oud is in there, it's in the note breakdown. This smells nothing like the original Supremacy. So if you're going into this thinking to yourself like, oh, this is going to be like an Aventus type flanker, anything but that, right? Much darker direction, very similar to Oud for Greatness. If you haven't tried this one, the presentation is just really freaking cool, right? I really like the color, how it goes from gold to brown. And I do like the ring on the cap here, makes it very easy to remove, does not click into place, so don't pick it up from it. But really nice, big size, and I think that you are getting your money's worth when you're dealing with this fragrance. And I know I've tried a lot of Afnan fragrances in the past, some of which I have only samples of, some of which I actually own full bottles. So I do look forward to delving a little bit deeper into the brand to see what else I can discover in the months to come. I know I've reviewed Rare Carbon, which was really, really good. That one was also a bit on the derivative side of things. But nevertheless, if you're looking for a more affordable alternative to either Marly's Hautaine or Oud for Greatness by Initio, check this one out. It does do its own thing. So I don't think it's a direct clone per se, but it does come really, really, really close. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, truth be told, I don't think it's very unique. I think it does bear a lot of resemblance to Oud for Greatness by Initio Parfum. However, the overall smell is one that is quite exotic and bold and daring and charismatic. It's not a mass appealing fragrance like Rehab by Initio is, or perhaps even Musk Therapy. And even when it comes to fragrances like Paragon is probably a bit easier to wear, even though it's on the darker side of things. It's perhaps a bit easier to wear than Oud for Greatness, and consequently Supremacy and Oud by Afnan. In terms of the longevity, this one is about 8+ hours on my skin, which is excellent. The projection on this one was really good for the first hour of application. It did radiate beyond an arm's length for the first 45 minutes, an arm's length for the first hour, an elbow's length until about hour 6.5, and then it became kind of a skin scent right around hour 8 or 9. In terms of the versatility, I think this one is a bit masculine leaning, especially when you start thinking about the oud and the green notes that are in the dry down. This is great for the colder weather. This is more on the formal side of things, and this is perhaps for somebody who's a little bit older, maybe 35 and up. But again, these are just recommendations. Really, wear what you want, wear what makes you happy. These are to be interpreted very loosely. In terms of the presentation, I think it's a beautifully done presentation. My final verdict on this fragrance is it's spicy with saffron, there's oud, there's some green notes, a touch of sweetness. This one bears quite the similarity to Oud for Greatness by Initio Parfum Privé. So if you're a fan of that, but you don't want to spend that much money, definitely check this fragrance out. I think it's a solid alternative. Thank you so much for watching. That was my review of Supremacy and Oud by Afnan. If you own or have tried this fragrance, let me know what you think. Leave a comment down below. Also, Also, please don't forget to support the channel by subscribing to it, hit the bell icon, and give this video a thumbs up if you learned something from today's episode. It would really, really mean a lot to me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.